My name is Rob Guile. I'm the Vice President of Consultant Services for Ali Group North America. Our other presenters today, if you can see them or find them on your screen, will be Jonathan Hunt. And Jonathan Hunt's one of our regional managers with Ali Refrigeration North America. And Chris Seeberger, who is our Director of Retail Sales with Ali Group North America. I also want to take just a moment to introduce Mitch Karb. Mitch is our marketing manager for Ali Refrigeration North America. He and his team have been the folks that put together this presentation today and sort of created the format. So Mitch, once again, thank you for all your hard work on this. And I'd also like to just take a moment, since she's on the phone for the first time, Ivana Bersetti. Ivana is actually over in our Milano office, and Ivana and I sort of spell each other on different sides of the ocean. So Ivana, welcome, and I hope you enjoy today's presentation. So the reason we're doing this, and I mentioned it, we held a very similar presentation a couple of weeks ago, is as we've gone through sort of this COVID-19 transition over the last few months, one of the things that came to light for us as manufacturers is the blast chiller category. Now, blast chillers is not a new product. It's been around for a couple of dozen years plus. But the thing about blast chillers is it was always sort of siloed into those types of operations where people felt that it needed to be in a big hotel where you're feeding 500 people at a time, or in some kind of a convention center setting. And quite honestly, that's just not true. That is specifically an area where blast chillers thrive. But if you look at blast chillers across the globe as a product category, we find that they're in use all over the place, even in very small restaurants, especially over in Europe. So we thought it made sense for us to just take a little time to talk about blast chillers today and try to help you as an operator or a dealer or a consultant to understand that we really should be thinking about this product in every application. So with that, the first thing we're going to do is Jonathan Hunt is going to take us sort of through the groundwork or the baseline of blast chillers, talk about why they make sense, the application in accordance with HACCP. And then after Jonathan's taken us through those slides, Chris Seeberger and myself are going to hold a conversation. That conversation is based on some questions that we put together. And these questions came from operators, consultants, and even some of our dealer partners out there. So we've crafted them so that we can talk about them in a general sense and hopefully help you as one of the participants today to understand a little bit more about why a blast chiller may make sense in your operation. We have chat available, and either Mitch or Jonathan are going to monitor that as we go along. So if you have some questions or some input, we'll go ahead and interject that as we go. So with that, again, welcome, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan Hunt, and we'll get started.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate the introduction there. And thank you all for joining us today. We understand that your time is valuable, and we want to make sure that when we hold these type of meetings, we're bringing as much value to the conversation as we possibly can. And as Rob mentioned, blast chilling, especially in the environment that we're in, seems to really be kind of a hot button topic right now. I think people are more aware of not only their own health, but as we tiptoe back into the market and people venture out to go eating again, eating in public, visiting those restaurants that they really want to support, I think consumers are going to be more aware of how their food is prepared and steps that restaurateurs and operators are taking to make sure that the food that they are serving is as safe as it possibly can be for consumption. And blast chilling, although not necessarily something that we've known about this in the American market for quite some time, I think it really is getting pushed to the forefront of the conversation between, consultants, the dealer community, our rep community as a manufacturer. So really want to take the time here today to kind of tee up why blast chilling is so important and why you're going to continue to hear about blast chilling as you continue to talk with end users. So to really tee this up, I think we need to understand kind of what the risks are out there in the world, right? And it happens really frequently in terms of foodborne illness. This is the number one risk that we typically face when we go out to eat. To put this in perspective, 1 in 6 Americans will contract a foodborne illness each year. So if you take the American nuclear family, one of those people is eventually going to succumb to a foodborne illness during the course of the year. When you extrapolate that, we're looking at 48 million cases annually, resulting in 128,000 hospitalizations and 3,000 deaths. Now, in the grand scheme of things, with everything that we're dealing with right now, 3,000 deaths is a relatively small number. However, it's still something that it can put people in harm's way. So trying to mitigate that risk, reducing foodborne illness is something that is going to be very important going forward. What's also important to note is that as people age, they can become more susceptible to foodborne illness. So not only do we have these people in a high-risk category for the current pandemic, but foodborne illnesses can put them at risk because of their weakened immune system. It takes them longer to digest food. You have a deteriorating sense of taste and smell, which means they might not be able to recognize food that is spoiled. And then obviously as you age, you encounter chronic health conditions. So all of these things coupled together, you put at-risk food with in the possession of an at-risk person, and we put people at risk. So important to try and mitigate this at all costs. And so the FDA and the CDC recommend certain ways to reduce foodborne illness. And a lot of these you guys are already going to be familiar with, right? We're going to clean, we're going to separate, we're going to cook. And then one thing that I know we're all familiar with, but maybe overlooked at certain times, is the refrigeration aspect. Making sure you're refrigerating perishable items or food below 40 degrees within 1 to 2 hours to get it outside of that bacteria proliferation zone. Extremely important. And again, these are CDC recommended guidelines. So what are the additional steps that a operator can take to reduce risk? And that involves incorporating and implementing a HACCP plan, right? So hazard analysis, critical control points. This is just making sure that in each step of the buying, the storing, the preparation, the cooking, and then the storage again for reuse or retherm, every portion of that process is monitored to make sure that the food is prepared correctly. The perishable goods are sold prior to their or before their expiration date. And then again, going back to that refrigeration aspect, right? So this is where blast chilling and blast freezing can become a really key part of any facility's HACCP plan. So what is blast chilling and blast freezing? So blast chilling and freezing is, the layman, easiest way to explain this is just extracting the heat out of the food as rapidly as possible to lower the temperature within a food safe or bacteria halting temperature within a set time period, right? So you're really looking to bring the food down below 40 degrees in a 90-minute time frame. And that's blast chilling, whereas blast freezing is taking your cooked food from a cooked state over 150 degrees down to below 0 in around 240 minutes. So this is where obviously a blast chiller or shock freezer comes in, because it gives you the ability to accomplish the removal of that heat from these cooked items in those specified time ranges to retard the growth and proliferation of bacteria. But what's great about a blast chiller and a shock freezer, it also gives you kind of these finer features, such as a soft chill or a hard chill. So a soft chill, very great, very good for your pastry chefs, or very delicate items that need to be frozen or chilled in a very consistent manner to reduce or eliminate the formation of ice crystals within the product. Also great to extend the life of certain produce or certain items and retain the overall freshness and flavor profile of the ingredients that you put in during a soft chill cycle. Whereas a hard chill cycle, this is going to be standard products that are very dense, very difficult to extract heat from these items in a short amount of time. The hard chill cycle, very good for, say, your refried beans or your pre-made lasagnas. Anything that's going to go in and be very dense and retain heat for a long period of time is where a hard chill cycle comes in. So how does blast chilling and blast freezing fit into a HACCP plan? This really allows food directors to implement what we call a cook chill system. And I know a lot of people on the phone or in the meeting here today are familiar with the cook chill system. It again, allows for the highest level of food safety control possible over the implementation of a diet food plan. And it also helps with significant cost savings via reduced labor, reduced food waste, and reduced energy consumption, right? These are all things, given the current state of our industry, that operators are going to be hyper aware of. And making an investment in a cook chill system, if they don't already have one, or making the investment in a blast chiller to help facilitate or even complement a cook chill system that they already are implementing, is a great potential opportunity for owner operators. Now, who's perfect for a cook chill system? These are people that are making over 600 meals a day or more. They're operating more than one feeding site. They have difficulty finding skilled labor, right, to employ in their kitchens. They realize that they have a lot of food waste and they're looking to reduce food waste costs, limited space within their kitchen, or they're just looking to improve the overall quality and consistency of the food that they're serving. You're going to see a lot of catering companies, large-scale senior living facilities. Chances are they've probably already implemented a cook and chill system into their food service operations. So what are the other advantages of a cook and chill system, right? I kind of touched on these already, but very important to really just reiterate them. You get to really dramatically reduce the reliance on the labor factor, right? That skilled labor, which can be difficult to come by. You can eliminate peaks and valleys associated with more cook and serve operations. So you can pre-make food and then have it ready for retherm to make sure that, any bulk service that you're doing is ready to go at the right time. Improve scheduling, obviously. And you reduce the potential for contamination, right? So you're reducing the number of touch points during product handling throughout the entire storage, preparation, cooking process, which again reduces the potential for a foodborne illness contamination. And then what I think is going to be extremely important, especially in this day and age, is the utilization of large batch cooking, right? So elimination of or reduction of total food costs, food preparation costs, ingredient costs, taking advantage of a central purchasing and receiving element to reduce duplicate functions, bulk food purchasing, taking advantage of, especially right now, you're going to have portions of the nation that are dealing with limited or stressed supply chains. So maximizing the purchase of ingredients when those ingredients become available to make sure that the facility is able to produce a very consistent product that their customers expect is very important, right? Improved inventory of both raw and cooked ingredients. I already mentioned the reduction of food waste and, you know, a significant decrease in leftover ingredients for finished products. So that's why we really feel that the opportunity for blast chilling is really starting to come to the forefront of a lot of the conversations we're having. What I'm going to do now is turn it back over to Rob and Chris to review some of those really kind of hard-hitting questions, things that you guys may be interested in and just haven't had the answer for. And then if you do have questions during their conversation, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and interjecting periodically through the conversation to make sure that every question that does come up is answered today. So without further ado, Chris and Rob, take it away.
All right. Hey, thanks, Jonathan, and thanks for giving us again that base of information. You know, right there at the end of the presentation, you saw all the different ways that this product really can save you, the operator, time, money. Not to even mention the fact that, you know, food quality and food safety are paramount, and all these things are just basic with blast chiller. But Chris, let's go ahead and go through a few of these questions that we put together. And I guess the first one is, what kind of steps would I, as an operator, need to take to tailor a blast chiller to my specific operation? You know, is there opportunity to customize it or customize the controls? Give me some baseline for that.
Yeah, you know, the first thing is you can customize the control system. You know, that's a very key, you know, element inside of a blast chiller, because everybody has different food. You know, whether it's large batch cooking, you know, in vertical uprights to under counters in only doing, you know, 2 to 3 pans. You know, it really helps, you know, allow the end user to really make sure that it's being done properly, you know, with staff that is not familiar with that process. You know, putting a probe in a pan, pushing a button, you know, is not, you know, the most complex piece of the puzzle. You know, but being able to have that end of the day or, you know, evening, you know, where they just got done doing 60 chickens, you know, and being able to probe those, put them inside that blast chiller before everyone walks out the door. And that's where some of your cost savings comes in for labor. And the next morning it'll shift into an auto cycle, or you can adjust the temperatures from when it will shift into an auto or complete. And, you know, that's where you can come up with that customizing, you know, based on a control system.
Oh, okay. Let's talk a little bit about the different sizes of blast chillers. I know there's, you know, under counter, countertop. There's some pretty good size units as far as roll-in. And really, as part of that, how would I, as, you know, either an operator or a consultant, determine what size is needed for a facility?
Yeah, all of my years in refrigeration, starting in the kitchen and working through all of these steps from the manufacturer side, it always will roll back into, what food are you doing? You know, you've got multiple different types of food chains out there, from a restaurant setting to fast casual to a C-store, retail, you know, large venues. You know, they've all gone this way with a blast chiller system. You know, and it depends on what they're doing, of course. You know, you've got vertical uprights where you can get a lot of sheet pans or 12 by 20s. You know, you can go to an undercounter where maybe 2 or 3 small units, depending on, again, what menu are they doing. You know, the vertical units are always the first one where people look at, and it might not even fit their profile. And that's where you really need to ask them, what's your plan with this piece of equipment? You know, you've got a lot of worktops that are becoming more and more prevalent out there because somebody wants to, you know, double down on, you know, I'm going to have, you know, this piece of equipment on top of it. I mean, some, you know, blenders, or I might have something along those lines. And it's a dual purpose piece, you know, because there's worktops in almost every kitchen across there. But, you know, no one ever thinks about, you know, maybe we could toss a blast chiller into this. And, you know, that's the one area where it might not even get VE'd out of it, just because that it has such a prevalent piece in that kitchen. The culinary team inside of there will know that they need that for whatever the dish is or whatever they're doing. You know, and it just comes back to the owner operators or whoever does the procurements.
All right, how about How about maintenance? There's concern about how much maintenance there might be in owning a blast chiller, and what kind of cleaning would be required. Is it really a challenge to get through all of that, or is it fairly simple?
Yeah, it is. It is fairly simple. I mean, a blast chiller, if used properly, will have covers on all of the pans or wrapped, something secure to keep debris from flying around, but everybody's different. I mean, that's like saying somebody doesn't kick a prep table drawer shut, do damage to it. Yeah, please gently shut the drawer. Yeah, a kitchen isn't doing those things. But the biggest part of it is the cleaning, and that's pretty self-explanatory of a standard cleaning. Pull your pans out, pull the rack system out, wipe it down with cleaners and sanitizer, put everything back into place. It does not take a long time to clean out a blast chiller. It's something that is, very easy. The staff will know what to do, and you can spot things right off the top. It's not like you're not going to see debris laying in the bottom. You've got drains in the bottom where you can really rinse out. Don't use a power washer to clean out the inside of a blast chiller. I say that only because I've walked that path, and really, you can sit down with that operator and make sure that it's inside of their SOP just to go through and make sure they do a cleaning, no different than any other refrigerated piece.
A lot of owners are looking at things like LEED for their projects, LEED certification or something else. Is a blast chiller an Energy Star type product? Does it use a lot of energy? And then, along with that, why is it so expensive? Because I know that's one of the biggest pushbacks that we see is, man, that's got a big price tag on it.
Yeah, first off, when it referenced into the Energy Star and trying to take advantage there, no, the Energy Star does not even have a category for blast chiller. So that one's just right off the table. There's so many out there, different sizes. You jump on auto quotes and you just type in blast chiller, you're going to see a whole lot of different things out there, from pan count to size, width, depth. Yeah, so that's something that is a little bit tough. And what unit is it? It's going to have vertical uprights, roll-ins. They are built like a tank. They have deeper insulation. They have, heavier duty stainless steel inside of there. And anybody who's, tore one or taken a look at it, the compressor is enormous, because it really needs to do a lot of refrigeration. The evaporators are an entire back wall. And you really need to make sure as a manufacturer to put in all of, the meat and potatoes inside of a blast chiller. Some people, and that's really why you see so many different profiles out there, because everybody makes them different. Not everybody has a worktop or an undercounter unit. Most people have vertical uprights. Some only hold pans a certain way. And with SNAP and DOE and all of these things come down, it's really one of those pieces of the puzzle that manufacturers had to step up. And that's where the cost comes in. It is not a piece of equipment that can be manufactured and just whooped out in a couple hours. There's a lot of components and a lot of wiring, and depending on the control system, even, is it going to be a touch screen and a high end, or is it just simplistic? I'm going to push two buttons and drop a probe in there and we're off and running. So those are some of the keys that come to it. So that's really where you need to take a spec sheet, look at it through and through. And again, go back to the operator to find out what pan count they have. Maybe you don't even need to buy a vertical upright unit or a roll-in. It's really going to say, what are we cooking here? What do we need to do? And find the right piece of equipment. Because instead of V-ing out, you can go to, hey, you guys aren't making that much in a blast chiller. Let's get a worktop in there and get you a cost savings. So that way it's not going to need to get taken out of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I saw over the years too, is there's always this assumption, well, we're going to need to spend, a significant amount of money and get ourselves a big roll-in blast chiller. But again, you go back to one of your first comments, what's on the menu? What is going to be beneficial to put into the blast chiller and use it? And how can you use it throughout the whole day, right? So that you can get your money's worth. So anyway, good comments. Let's jump over and let's take a look at the cooking portion of this just a little bit before we get the product to the blast chiller. What kind of cooking techniques are out there, and what would you recommend? Because a lot of people are very comfortable with what they do currently, And, of course, we're always going to be reserved to make change, but based on what's happening right now, we're forced into some changes. So it might be a good time to take a look at some of that stuff.
Yeah, and and the back step on that is, inside of the kitchen in my years, chefs and staff only know what to use by where they are in the kitchen. Some people might not even know what a braising pan is, or different type of piece of equipment. So that's when you sit down with the culinary team and say, do you know what a blast chiller is? And they go, no. Yeah, and then that's where the explanation comes into play, on the side of you guys speaking, with that end user and really looking at what they're doing as an operations piece. And that'll help pave the path for them on their cooking style, and there's so many different types of cooking styles out there. In Europe, they've always done sous vide style cooking for a long time, and blast chillers became more and more prevalent, because then you're just going to pull a bag out of, hot water and slip it right into a blast chiller, and you're off and running. In the States, the food service side and the inspectors were very hesitant on that, and a lot of culinary teams were basically taking a tub and sliding in a sous vide circulator and hiding in the back corner, to get that, because it is such a fantastic cooking method. In being able to take that bag or that stock, and you see that in large commissary runs, hotels, hospitals, and it's become more and more prevalent. And Jonathan touched on it in cook chill systems in large volume, where you see a lot of people have to take that path, because they want to go, where's my place to save money here, and how can I do it safely? And the blast chillers roll in. It's in retail, it's been there for a long time. They understand that taking a large capacity oven, a rotisserie, and busting out 70, 80 chicken at a time has always been in there, but it's only went that path with a large volume. Now you can take chefs who using it for desserts, they're using it for small specific types of dishes. You're getting it used for someone who's making their own stocks, like a ramen noodle restaurant, where they can take everything down at the end of the day, drop it in a 40-gallon kettle and make their own stock. Well, what are they doing? Well, bag it up and put it inside of a blast chiller, because if you take that 165-degree bags into your walk-in, you're having a big problem on your hands. This is where food safety comes through. Not on the product you just cooked, and if you can't get the temperature down in time, but it's everything else inside of there. If you're parking that near some leafy greens, or somebody cut some fish inside of there, you're raising the temperature, you're defrosting. I'm going to throw it in my roll-in freezer. That's even worse. You're defrosting things, and that leads to that crystallization of water. So really educating somebody that does not know, because I've seen stock pots come off the 6 burner, they drop it into a 3-comp sink, load it down with 100 pounds of ice, going, no, this will work, it'll get it cold fast. No, that's exactly not the way we want to do it. So it's really educating them, because those are the type of people that have never seen a blast chiller. They don't know what you're talking about, and that's where that training and that conversation come into play.
Hey, but besides just your standard sort of cooking, what about like bakeries, confectionery shops, those types of thing? Is that a good spot for blast chillers too?
Yeah, there's certain small items that somebody might do where they're making something along a flake pastry, where they're putting a lot of butter, or they're doing some types of doughs, or puff pastries even, where they're really folding a lot of butter into that dough they just made, and they need to keep it down to temp. You can't sit there and just let that just be nice and warm. You cut it up, portion it out, have it set, put it into a blast chiller. It might only be 15 minutes, but they need to get it down to temp to hold the product, to stop those glutens from breaking down, or changing the whole profile of that, dish. And they want to hand out good product. Everybody in the end wants to get good product to customers, do more dishes, and make more money. And that way you can look at those types of things and say, how can I make that happen in a proper format? So yeah, bakeries are using that. And those are somebody that definitely might not know. You're getting a lot more items in there that are being cooked quickly, and they're getting put into storage, and you're getting more of a shelf life. And it's components that are normally the big thing. A pizza place isn't throwing dough inside of a blast chiller, but they can go out there and make a lot of other prep items, and then have that food safety right in play. You get a longer shelf life on it, And that's where your cost savings to product comes in. You're not throwing things in the trash, because, food waste is the killer of all restaurants, and this takes care of some of those things when they can start looking at other concepts to cook with. And sous vide plays a lot into that, and you get bakeries that are doing, different types of formats and testing things out. And you can really take advantage, just describing what's going on.
Yeah, I remember a healthcare facility one time said it is one of the quickest and best ways to get Jello set up and ready to go. If you're running low on Jello, you just set it up and put it in there, and boom, you're ready to serve again. Obviously, that's really important to hospitals. So let's move into one of the things we've heard a lot lately because of everything going on. A lot of the operators are talking about feeling obligated to pre-package up all of their products and sell them so that there isn't as much hand touching or interaction. But the big concern with that is they've invested years in some cases in delivering a high quality flavor for their products, and now they're concerned about, in a prepackaged format, is it still going to have the ability to taste the same? So can a blast chiller help with something like that?
Oh yeah, as COVID, slapped everybody in the face in the food world. Retail, in my world now has done pre-packaging for a long time, grab and goes and so on and so forth. But it's something that restaurants really had to step back and go, ooh, how are we going to stay in business? And curbside pickup was the first one, where somebody really had to go, how can I make a good quality dish, get it to a customer, and they can go home and either, retherm themselves. You've got those types of things out there, or, just giving a hot dish, and some of those things with blast chillers played definitely into that, from sauces and, component pieces, they never know that, I'm going to take and throw a chicken breast or something cut up on there and have it ready for the customer. The line's going crazy just trying to get things done. Well, they're learning now that I can go out there and do 60 pounds of chicken breast and blast chill it down and then pull it out, retherm it as it comes through. This is what commissaries and everybody from large venues have been doing forever. I mean, we've all been to trade shows and everything else, and you're sitting around and, there's nobody in the back busting out 500 plates of chicken breast. They have that concept down. And this is what restaurants really had to figure out. So then everything came into play of, I'm going to do batch preparations on things. If I've got baby carrots, I'm going to let's blanch them down. Let's throw them in a blast chiller, get them in the walk-in, and then they can just go out there and retherm those and put it in the dish and have, great green beans that are still crisp, or, retherm baby carrots to go into a dish. And it's not just much, they're learning there's other concepts out there that really played ball into a restaurant environment. I've seen it a long time with, dessert items where they're spooning on sorbets and all of these types of things. And, they've used, I'm going to freeze down, fruits or anything along those lines for different concepts. But they've never really had to look at it in a way to do a curbside setup and really get dishes to their customers that still taste good. And batch cooking became part of it. Smaller batches, obviously, they don't have a rotisserie or space back there, but everybody has an oven. Or they have a braising pan or a kettle, and they're doing their own soups or their own stocks. And those are small things, but big things, because, just no different than, mise en place, everything has a purpose and a place. And they're finding out that they can take small things and do them in large volumes and just grab it right out of the walk-in and save time, turn plates faster, customers are happy, and they're just realizing that there is something different out there. And it still puts out a quality item. So,
yeah, I think in some ways the blast chiller actually can deliver better quality than what some folks are doing right now, especially when they're using a walk-in to chill stuff down and trying to retherm it or repasteurize it at some later date. So let's talk about food safety. Now, that's a term that the hospitality industry's been talking about forever, right? But now we know things like food safety is paramount. So how can a blast chiller help to assure customers that that when I go into a place to consume a meal, that food safety is part of that operation.
Yeah, again, it falls back to what they're cooking. I mean, customers are being more educated on process. But some retail locations have put a blast chiller up front, and nobody knows what that is. It's a giant stainless steel box. They're not picking up on, oh, look, you're using a blast chiller. But to go back to that customer and tell them about how it's prepared at these temperatures, it's cooked to perfection. They're not looking for an answer on, I put in a blast chiller and it got down to temp in 90 minutes. That's not reassuring them on anything because they don't know what the heck you're talking about. But, for you as an end user to talk about how you prepared that dish and really made sure that you're getting a quality item out to them, that's something that they grab a hold of, and they understand that you're putting the time and labor into making something top quality and taking all the food safety preparations that you can. They're not going to ask that question. Once that customer understands you're doing everything possible, that's fantastic. And then when you as a end user are looking at it as food safety from your staff perspective, that's where people that aren't educated in the kitchen, you get worried, and we touched on that earlier. People that aren't trained, and retail is one of those areas, and the guy that just came from washing dishes, moving up the line, is learning those things. And to be able to take, a 12 by 20 pan of black beans or another dish you had in the oven, a lasagna or pasta or something along those lines, and dropping it in there and to get it down to temp, you as an end user make sure that you're taking all those steps to provide that dish. And that's really, where they have to look at the food. What are you handing out? How what are you making? We saw almost every, from McDonald's to everybody else, let's reduce our menu option. We're going to reduce those down to try to make it. Nobody was complaining for the most part that they, took, and reduced that menu down. But as an operator, they learned a couple of other steps out there to make it more efficient. And now everybody is really going, maybe we should go back to just basically having a drive-through or curbside because we're making more money.
Yep. Good point.
Rob, we've got a question here from the chat.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Lends itself to the topic you guys were just discussing. If you've got a new construction, right? They don't have a lead operator on site. They don't have a menu just yet. What, in your opinion, what's the determining factor around the size of the blast chiller we should be recommending? Is it number of meals we're anticipating per day? Is it the ingredient buying? What's your opinion there?
Yeah, if someone's out there, if you're a consultant talking about a job or you're a dealer talking about it, in some format, somebody, when they said, I'm going to open a restaurant, really had an idea in mind. They weren't just going to go, I'm going to open a restaurant and whatever happens, but it's really the profile of it. Is it, a Mexican restaurant? Are we doing steak? Or are we going to be an Italian or a pizza place? There is something in there, and you can go backwards and reference, oh, look, it's a Mexican style restaurant. Well, almost everybody in the dealer world has probably had that cross your plate at one time or another, or an end user has no different than any other restaurant owner. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to have 30 dishes of different things and watch it, and I'm just going to spy on them because I want to take advantage of this and learn that process. And that's where the first steps come into play, and understanding, if they're saying a very baseline of I'm going to do a Mexican restaurant and I need, a 12-quart kettle that's going in there. What are you cooking in there? Oh, we're going to do, refried beans. Okay, you're busting out, and you're going to be filling those pans or bagging or whatever. How are you cooling them down? And that's immediately where a blast chiller conversation falls into place off of one singular product. Italian restaurants, oh yeah, you're going to be doing these pastas and this. Are you making your own sauce? Oh yeah, we're doing. Oh, that's going to be labeled all over everything. Okay, how much are you doing at a time? What's your expectations of how many plates you need to serve to be breaking even, and how many plates do you want to make money off of? And that tells you right there how many quarts, how many pounds of something. Oh yeah, we're going to bake potatoes. Well, okay, well then let's talk about the concept of doing baked potatoes. Are you throwing it in a microwave, or are you going to be doing it in a different large bulk format? you know, for scalloped potatoes inside of a school. You know, it depends on the restaurant if it's going to be a smaller venue, and it really comes down to the individual. And at that point in time, oh yeah, we're just doing it for sauces, and we're bagging those, and we're going to do, you know, 60 pounds, you know, every couple of days, because that's how many dishes we're going through. Okay, you know, okay, maybe a worktop's going to fall in there because all you're doing is placing them on a sheet pan and getting them down to temp. Refried beans, black beans, you know, something along those lines where they're doing, everybody's got 12 by 20 pans. So, you know, and that falls into what's being done, how it's being done, and that just kind of plays in the format of the right size piece. You know, I got C-stores that are bringing in under counters because they're doing chicken tenders and they want to reuse those in a secondary item. Retail's been doing this for decades of doing those rotisserie chicken and having one person in the back cutting them down once, you know, and putting them inside the walk-in because they're going to sell the chicken breasts. They're going to take the leftovers and they're going to chop it up and use it in salads. You know, there's locations that are just basically buying a blast chiller, you know, and just rolling in salads because they're turning so many at a time. And that's where food safety falls into place, or keeping something crisp and clean and really taking advantage of it. Yeah, if you're putting salads out, you know what you're doing. You're making a sauce, you know, you're making a vinaigrette. You're doing something, you know, in a process to cook something down. And nobody's going to say, oh yeah, that, you know, 50-degree bag that I just had is food safe. You know, health inspector is going to walk all over you 6-way Sunday, but, you know, saying I put in a blast chiller under HACCP, you know, is going to please them all day long. So again, it rolls back to the food and the concept. And in the very beginning, it goes back to if you're having a conversation of what style of restaurant, whether you're talking, you know, seating, you're talking plates, you know, you're talking smallwares. At some point, somebody knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. The question that was asked was specific to senior living facility. So you brought up some great points on restaurants. You know,
oh yeah, I can touch on senior living centers if you want to be, you know, job specific, and I'm more than happy to do that. You know, senior living again is going to fall into format of some of them are multi-locations, multi-levels. They got large kitchens, and then they're doing, you know, batch cooking. And that's one of the concepts that's falling more and more into place, you know, because of staff and volume and getting those plates out there. You know, no one's going to be doing, you know, a walkthrough where everyone's just loading a plate on their own. That's going, you know, yeah, as COVID is into place, that's gone. You know, there's no line there. It's going to be by the plate, you know, and or a delivery to a room, depending on the senior living center that you're in. You know, and so batch cooking is probably going to be the first thing that you're going to have on your design of that commissary inside of there, and say, okay, you know, let's look at what we're going to do. You know, we need to have, you know, a lot softer products out there just due to dietary. We need to be more into allergies. You know, we need to have something that's going to be, you know, easier to cook, and our timetable is going to be fast. You know, probably a medium amount of plates are going to be done. You know, and at that point in time, you're going to look at what food, you know, you want to serve to them, because that's the one thing that they're going to want to have in plate. I've listened to those end users complain all day long that the food is horrible. It's hospital food. You know, I hate it. You know, and everybody's stepping their game up. You know, I've worked with a lot of those, you know, senior living centers that are bringing in top quality chefs into their facilities, and they're not screwing around. You know, they're doing, you know, nice pasta dishes, and that's all scratch cooking. You know, and that's where a blast chiller will play again into that format of, there's going to be specific dishes that are going to be an easier high volume. Again, like lasagnas or component pieces with beans, you know, or you're going to be doing something, you know, with vegetables, you know, or salads where you're going to get that bulking amount. Again, it's not everything that they're going to understand, but it's really come to the forefront where senior living centers, as you know, the baby boomer age is getting more and more, you know, inside of that profile and moving into senior living centers. I mean, there's senior living centers out there that you've got, you know, secured down. Everyone's got a golf cart and they're just cruising around. They're having restaurants inside of the scene. It's not, you know, an apartment complex where everybody's walking down to the cafeteria for dinner anymore. So you're gonna look at those types, and it's gonna be a restaurant style. You should walk into a senior living center expecting them to go, I want to have high quality dishes.
Yeah, I guess one other thing I'll add in there, just talking about senior living, is I think it's a lot, and Chris, you even mentioned this in another conversation. It's a lot like the military in some ways, where you have these very specific recipes based on health needs, right? And if you go back to even like mama's or grandma's secret pasta sauce, it doesn't always have to be made in 1 quart containers, right? You can make it in 5, 10 gallon volumes and still get the exact same quality if you use something like a blast chiller to chill it down and retherm it as the week goes on, or 2 weeks. One other thing I want to make sure and get to, and we're sort of running close on time here, is how about UV sanitizing? That's another term that we've seen pop up over the last couple of months. What is our blast chillers offer from that standpoint? And then how about things like having the ability to chill more than one product at a time?
Yeah, the UV portion of it for food safety, and that goes back to the cleaning process. You don't want to screw around and not clean that thing, properly. And end users or customers on design or multi-use, from hotels, they're going to want to make sure that that unit is up to snuff and clean. Not to mention that they're going to be able to have that in there for an inspection. And there's going to be no questions asked. As food safety, it becomes larger than the dollar amount of how much budgetary I'm going to have into place. That's something that plays right in. And in the second question of that, is really based on, again, with a menu option, what are we putting in there? And that just falls back into that UV template of let's take advantage and look at it as a high quality item. If that gets specified in there, a lot of people don't have that ability, and you're going to reduce that down to really look at what piece of equipment is going to fit that profile. Is that end user looking for that feature inside of there? Well, then you're laying out these 3 or 4 or whoever has it at the time, and getting it specified into place.
And so I have one last thing. It's not really a question, but I think it might be really valuable to the folks that are on the call today, especially with your extensive retail background. And most of the individuals that are on here are in non-commercial. Tell us how we can take advantage of some of the things retail has been doing. You sort of touched on this a little bit, but the retail has been doing for many, many years now. And how do we transfer some of that success over and use it in the non-commercial side?
Retail has always put food safety ahead of dollars, and as COVID is hitting and people are becoming more aware of food safety, now they're going, what do I need? It's not, the question is not coming first, and you'll still have it of, my budget is this, and I need these prep tables, this, well, that's fine. That's some standardized equipment in there, but they are going to say, how can I make my kitchen safer for my customer? And blast chillers roll right into that conversation. And that's one of the important parts of it. Retailers have always looked at that. And then they've stepped up their game inside of the restaurant side. I've got retail locations that have a restaurant right in there. Let's walk in and have dinner, and then we're going to grab the cart and we're going to go hit the the aisles and pick up dinner for the night. And we're not buying microwave pizza. They can go through and get prepared meals, grab and go items that are top quality. For one, they're bringing chefs into there. They've understood that they need to have a culinary knowledge to appease their customers, and they all have capital, and they're really taking advantage of knowing that they can invest in and really get themselves high quality dishes, and that rolls back into, restaurants, for the most part have a chef in there. They just need to understand, that there's another piece of equipment out there. If you're doing a kitchen for a school or a commissary, a senior living center like you talked about, if they have an educated staff, I would immediately walk to the chefs and the culinary team and talk to them. Make sure that they understand that there's a piece of equipment. If they don't, And if they do, that's where the size of the equipment and how much volume and plates they're going to be using, and really educate themselves to put out a quality item. You know, retailers have done bulk and really reprocess. They are probably the most efficient company for food waste that I've ever seen, because they waste nothing. And we see on Food Network all the time, oh, I'm going to take these scraps and I'm going to make, yeah, there's chefs out there. There's a lot of other ones that just bag it in the trash can and it's out the door, you know. And retailers have created central commissary kitchens where they're taking all that meat that's butchered, they're cutting it up, or chicken, and they're making their own stocks with it. They're not screwing around. They, you know, and that's efficiency, you know, and that's low food waste, and they're making a high quality thing. Cents on the dollar in them making stock in an overnight kettle and pulling it out of there and dropping it into a blast chiller and putting it in a quart container out front with their label on there. And the customers are just going off the deep end, because a lot of people are getting the home delivery and so on and so forth, and trying to become more culinary in the kitchen. And COVID only boosts that, you know, you know, I'm going to get it delivered to my house, you know, or I'm going to pick up the component pieces. And that's where retailers were the last people standing through this beginning of COVID. And people have become more understanding that, oh, I can cook at home. I really don't suck that much. You know, I can watch some YouTube programs and educate myself. I just need to buy good components, you know, and the restaurants already have that feature. They just need to learn that they need to take those steps and some other equipment, and they can become more efficient and have less food waste. And that's what the retail people did, you know, out there. And C-stores are not far behind them. They're not just going, we're selling beer and gas and cigarettes. There's no money there. You know, they're going, we need food. You know, that's how we're making money. And they're investing in that process. You know, and they're going to look at it. They were always the first people to VE things out, you know, not restaurants. And now they're not. It's amazing what's going on.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, Chris. So I think that's pretty much what we had for today. Chris and Jonathan, thank you so much for participating in the insight. For those of you that joined us today, we really do appreciate it. We hope that this was a little bit of an education for you. I know it always is for us. We always learn something new when we have these conversations internally.